concept of the DAO is taken everyone's, it kind of captured everybody's imaginations right now. It looks like everybody wants to launch a DAO, and the holy grail seems to be, can I build this network that would autonomously do the same thing that a 1,000-member company does somewhere else. Why do I want to do this? Because this scales exponentially because it's not limited to the decision-making prowess of the operating team, and also the upside of this growth is shared equitably to a lot of people. So there are a lot of good things about a DAO, and it almost feels like this is how companies should be built, right? And to a large extent, the most successful networks in Web3 are, in a sense, DAOs, right? Like you could, at the cost of perhaps being overly reductive, I could say that, networks like Bitcoin and Ethereum are at some senses DAOs. These are companies that perform a particular function with no co-founder, no CEO, and entirely governed and run by the community. Like Bitcoin is technically a payments network. It can facilitate a transfer of value from one place to another at really, really low costs and in a peer-to-peer manner and in a way that is extremely highly secure. It almost sounds like what a payments infrastructure company would want to do, right? These are, as long as the functions are very, very straightforward in that sense that there is one function that I have to perform, and this is the decentralized model to basically make sure that this function is done in a decentralized and autonomous manner. I think DAOs perhaps today already do a better job at a unit function level than several companies. The pickle actually happens when the functions of the organization that you want to decentralize and automate become a little more complex. It is extremely hard to hard code logic of processes and policies of a very large organization at a very, very early stage. By the time the ideal DAO is something that has fixed operational excellence across all the functions that a company does at a very, very basic level to a point where it doesn't need human intervention. And that is when a DAO can truly replace what a corporate does. The other big problem with DAOs is in the way in which they're governed. Now, what does this mean, right? Like today, there is a lot of big problems that DAOs are still looking to solve. Like, for example, how does somebody govern what to work on? Most of the DAOs that I see right now seems to be a bunch of proposals that are coming over, and a governing council comes together and says, okay, this sounds good, or this doesn't sound good, or maybe we shouldn't work on it. But is there a streamlined decision-making process that articulates these problems really, really well? And I think that that's a serious problem for DAOs to solve, and some of them are doing it. But to be able to create a successful organizations that is decentralized and autonomous, there's got to be a very seamless way in which proposals of improving and growing the DAO has to come across. So that's obviously a very, very big problem that we're looking to solve. The other is pseudonymous reputation, right? Like, okay, I know me, I know people face to face, I know their track record, I know the background, and I know the value that they can add. And I can tie a decision weight to them for some of the votes that they do. And then, basically I have a scale when I know the identities of people to measure them on. And thereby also give them governance rights on a DAO. But how do I do this in a pseudonymous world? And what does this mean? Most people kind of log into DAOs with MetaMask, the identity is masked, and there is no way of putting a reputation system when you know very, very little about the person. So how do we solve for that? That to me is the big question here. And these are just two of the big problems that are there right now. But the biggest issue in DAOs, if you ask me, is in governance, number one, and that governance structures need to be streamlined in such a way that you can decentralize and automate every function within an organization's mandate. And that perhaps is why very complex DAOs don't succeed very well today, because there isn't a way of streamlining a lot of those things that require human intervention today. And as soon as you put in human intervention inside a DAO, it starts to break down, and you have exposure to risks that exist in traditional companies as well. And at which point you might as well build a traditional company as opposed to doing it as a DAO. So to reiterate, as long as the function is simple, it is perhaps easier to, or rather, as long as the function is linear, and it is perhaps easier to build a decentralized and autonomous organization. Governance processes within DAOs are not clear in such a way in which you can meaningfully decentralize and automate functions. And as these functions increase, large organizations cannot really build successful DAOs because of the inherent problems in creating policy and governance structures that currently exist. So I hope that answers your question. And if you're building a DAO, why don't you put down what you're working on, and we could have a chat about this on the BuildersTribe Discord. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the BuildersTribe YouTube channel so we could keep interacting in this way. Cheers.